Have you ever felt a bit lost, even when you're surrounded by people? Have you ever been in a room buzzing with laughter and conversation, yet still sensed a quiet, invisible ache somewhere deep in your heart? Or perhaps during those long nights, when it's just you and the four walls, you suddenly felt incredibly small and alone? I believe, to some extent, we've all had moments like these. Loneliness is like an uninvited guest, isn't it? It creeps into the deepest corners of our souls. We often look at the world and see so much that seems unfair, don't we? Some people seem to be born with a silver spoon, while others struggle every single day. Some are blessed with good health, while others battle illness. But have you ever stopped to think that amidst all these differences, there are a couple of things that are incredibly fair, things that life bestows upon every single one of us? Those are the finite nature of our time here, death and its constant companion throughout our human journey, loneliness. Now, that might sound a little gloomy, but today, I want to invite you to look at loneliness from a completely different angle, an angle that might just help us find a hidden strength within. And the book that will be our guide on this journey is none other than a masterpiece of world literature. A novel whose very name evokes a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. 100 Years of Solitude by the literary giant Gabriel García Márquez. Perhaps many of you have heard of it or even read it. People often talk about 100 Years of Solitude in terms of its breathtaking, magical realism, its sweeping portrayal of Latin American history and society. But today, BookSmart Insights is going to dig a little deeper into another layer of meaning, a hidden message that might just be the key to building a strong inner self. Learning how to face and perhaps even embrace loneliness. Sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? How can we possibly embrace an emotion like loneliness, which is usually seen as so negative? Well, let's find out together. Before we jump in, if this is your first time joining us at BookSmart Insights, this is the place where we share knowledge for personal development, all inspired by fantastic books. I truly believe that every book holds precious lessons, and our job is to uncover them and apply them to our lives. If you also love reading and are keen on improving yourself a little bit each day, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss a thing. All right, let's get back to our main topic for today. Building a strong inner self by embracing loneliness through 100 Years of Solitude. You could say that 100 Years of Solitude isn't just a novel, it's a miniature universe. It's a place where the fate of 7 generations of the Buendía family in the mythical village of Macondo spins in a vortex of love, war, ambition, and above all, a persistent, gnawing loneliness. Many literary critics, Mechanism the World, have said that if your bookshelf could only hold one novel, it should be 100 Years of Solitude. The New York Times once famously stated it was the first piece of literature since the Book of Genesis that should be required reading for the entire human race. Indeed, its impact is immense. So, how can a book about the unceasing loneliness of a family actually help us become stronger? Where does the secret lie? We're going to peel back the layers of meaning and follow the characters to understand the different forms of loneliness and how they confronted it. And most importantly, we'll draw lessons for ourselves. As I mentioned at the beginning, life, in many ways, isn't fair. We don't choose where we're born, our appearance, or our family circumstances. Some people seem to have it all, while others face countless challenges. But there are 2 things that no one, whether king or commoner, rich or poor, blissfully happy or utterly miserable, can escape. And those are loneliness and death. In 100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel García Márquez portrays this with profound insight. The Buendía family, from one generation to the next, seems haunted by a curse of solitude. They might experience moments of incredible glory, burning passions, fierce wars, but in the end, the shadow of loneliness always envelops them. It's not just physical loneliness, like not having anyone around. It's a deeper kind of loneliness, a solitude of the soul, a feeling of being unable to connect, of not being understood. Perhaps it's this universality that makes loneliness such an impartial destiny. It plays no favorites. You can have everything the world offers, money, status, love, and still feel profoundly lonely. Conversely, you might not have much, but if you learn to face it and find peace from within, loneliness might not seem so daunting anymore. The writer Ernest Hemingway once said, "Man is born alone and dies alone." And philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer famously remarked, "A man can do what he wills, but not will as he wills." Our desires, our cravings for connection, our relentless efforts to escape loneliness can sometimes be the very things that plunge us deeper into it. 100 Years of Solitude shows us that loneliness isn't an abnormal state, but an inherent part of being human. Instead of trying to deny it or fight it hopelessly, perhaps we need to learn to acknowledge and accept it. And when we accept, that's when we begin to find strength. Just as we know we will die, but that doesn't stop us from living, loving, and contributing. Knowing that loneliness is always present can help us cherish moments of connection even more, and more importantly, build an inner world resilient enough not to be overwhelmed by it. So, how did the characters in 100 Years of Solitude experience loneliness? Let's journey into their stories. To truly grasp the diversity and complexity of loneliness, we have to look at the iconic characters of the Buendía family. Each has their own destiny, their own unique brand of loneliness. Yet they all reflect certain aspects of ourselves. José Arcadio Buendía, the loneliness of the misunderstood pioneer. Let's start with the founder of the Buendía lineage and the mythical village of Macondo, José Arcadio Buendía. He was a man of soaring imagination, an insatiable desire for discovery, and a spirit that constantly sought out the new. When the gypsies brought inventions like magnets or magnifying glasses, José Arcadio Buendía wasn't just curious. He wanted to use them to mine gold, to build weapons. He designed roads and houses and taught the villagers how to sow seeds. He had an extraordinary vision, a yearning to connect Macondo with the civilized world. But do you know what José Arcadio Buendía's tragedy was? It was the loneliness of a man ahead of his time, a man whose ideas no one around him could comprehend. The people of Macondo, accustomed to their backwards, insular lives, thought he was a crazy dreamer. Even his wife, Ursula, strong and practical as she was, couldn't share her husband's aspirations. She was often disappointed because he didn't do his duty properly, meaning the everyday, concrete tasks. Does this image feel familiar to you? Have you ever had a brilliant idea, a burning passion, but when you shared it, all you got were doubtful looks, dismissive comments, or worse, indifference? That's precisely the loneliness José Arcadio Buendía endured. It wasn't the loneliness of lacking company, but the loneliness of not finding a kindred spirit, someone who was on the same frequency as his thoughts and emotions. What we call loneliness is when the person you're facing, their emotions and your own emotions, are just not on the same wavelength. Only the old gypsy Melquiades understood and appreciated José Arcadio Buendía's ideas, calling him a great man. But then Melquiades also passed away. Losing his only confidant, José Arcadio Buendía gradually lost his mind, was tied to a chestnut tree in the courtyard, and lived out his final years in complete solitude. communicating only with the ghosts of his past. A reader on Goodreads once shared, "Reading about José Arcadio Buendía, I felt a lingering sadness. He wasn't mad. He just saw things others didn't. And that made him different and ultimately alone." His story is a reminder that sometimes great intelligence and vision can also be a burden if there's no one to walk alongside you and understand. The loneliness of the pioneer, the artist, the scientist. It's a very particular kind of loneliness, both proud and tragic. Perhaps in the end, even he no longer believed in himself. And that was the height of his tragedy. Ursula Iguarán, wormless cloaked in devotion. If José Arcadio Buendía represented soaring aspirations, then Ursula Iguarán, his wife, embodied practicality, diligence, and an incredible life force. She was the pillar of the Buendía family, the one who managed everything, from raising children and running the household to making candy animals to earn extra income. She lived through Macondo's many ups and downs, witnessing the birth and decline of several generations. The largest house in Macondo was built by her own hands. On the surface, Ursula was a strong, dynamic woman, always busy. She seemed to have no time for sadness or loneliness. But my friends, that very busyness, perhaps, was a way for her to escape the loneliness simmering within. She dedicated her entire life to her family. But did she truly receive the love and understanding she craved from her husband and descendants? In her old age, Ursula went blind. But the sad part is, it seemed no one in the family fully noticed or truly cared. She had to rely on her sense of smell to identify people and to navigate her own home. Her grandchildren grew up and left to pursue their own lives, forgetting her in a corner of a room. In the end, Ursula died in helplessness and solitude. The love she received from later generations was faint and fleeting. Ursula's loneliness was the loneliness of a lack of love, even while living amidst a large family, even after sacrificing everything. This is a very common form of loneliness in our lives, isn't it? How many mothers, wives, and grandmothers have spent their lives toiling for their husbands and children, only to feel empty in their later years? How many people always appear strong, shouldering every responsibility, yet deep down yearn for a shoulder to lean on, a word of genuine comfort? Ursula's loneliness stemmed from an inner feeling of lack. But perhaps you don't lack someone to love you. Perhaps you lack the capacity to love. Or, one could say, she lacked a reciprocal response to what she gave. Her loneliness is a reminder that love needs nurturing from both sides. Unilateral sacrifice, no matter how noble, can hardly fill the void in the soul if there's no connection and understanding. Many readers on book forums, when discussing Ursula, express deep sympathy. They see in her the image of women around them, strong, resilient, yet profoundly alone. Colonel Aureliano Buendía, loneliness at the peak of glory and the journey to peace. Perhaps the character who leaves the deepest and most complex impression of loneliness is Colonel Aureliano Buendía, son of José Arcadio and Ursula. His life was a tragic epic, filled with glorious victories but also steeped in an ultimate loneliness. Even in his mother's womb, Aureliano cried. Born with the ability to foresee events, a special gift that also became a curse, making him withdrawn and taciturn. Like his father, he was curious about new things, immersing himself in alchemy. But alchemy couldn't free him from loneliness. He needed companionship, and his brother José Arcadio II was the only one he could confide in. But then, that brother also left, following a gypsy girl and the call of love. This loss seemed to push Aureliano into a new whirlwind. He found love with the young Remedios Moscote, a pure and intense love, despite the scandal it caused. During that time, Orellano seemed to transform, becoming more cheerful and open. But happiness was short-lived. Remedios died suddenly. Grief and resentment against fate once again plunged Orellano into the abyss of loneliness. And then, war broke out. Orellano threw himself into the civil wars as a way to escape his own darkness. He launched 32 armed uprisings, survived 14 assassination attempts, 73 ambushes, and became a legendary commander, feared by his enemies. He had power, fame, countless women, and 17 sons. It seemed he had it all. But can you guess what happened? It was at the very pinnacle of power and glory that Orellano felt lonelier than ever. The emptiness that comes from the height of power, the numbness from loveless encounters, brought him the bone-chilling cold of loneliness. His 17 sons came looking for him, only to be mysteriously assassinated one by one. Those close to him also betrayed him. He became suspicious, ruthless, and distant from everyone. The famous writer Milan Kundera wrote in The Unbearable Lightness of Being, "The heavier the burden, the closer our lives come to the earth, the more real and truthful they become. Conversely, the absolute absence of a burden causes man to be lighter than air, to soar into the heights, take leave of the earth and his earthly being, and become only half real, his movements as free as they are insignificant." Perhaps Orellano's glory and power were like that lightness, distancing him from himself. Colonel Orellano's journey shows us a harsh truth. Trying to escape loneliness by plunging into external conquests, whether war, power, or fleeting relationships, cannot bring true peace. In fact, it often makes loneliness deeper and more terrifying. So what was the way out for Orellano? The moment in his story is when he realizes this. Standing on the pedestal of glory, hailed by soldiers, only he understood the terrible emptiness within. He compared himself to a pig wallowing in a sty of honor. Disgusting. A turning point came when he decided to surrender and was about to execute a former comrade. His mother Ursula's intervention and hours of quiet contemplation led to an awakening. The image of his father painstakingly crafting little goldfish returned to him. He realized that what meaning did supreme glory hold? How dazzling was the legend compared to the days he spent quietly alone in his workshop, making little goldfishes. And so, Colonel Aureliano Buendía made a decision that changed the rest of his life. He gave up everything, took off his uniform, returned home, and spent his final days making little goldfish in his workshop. He made them, melted them down, and made them again, just to repeat the process. In that focused solitude, he found an unprecedented peace. Loneliness was still there, but it was no longer a monster devouring him. He had learned to accept and live with it, turning it into a space for stillness and creation. Aureliano's story is an invaluable lesson. Inner strength doesn't come from conquering loneliness, but from understanding and accepting it as a part of life. When we stop running, we finally have a chance to find true peace. Through the stories of these three emblematic characters from the Buendía family, we've seen the different faces of loneliness. Loneliness from being misunderstood, loneliness from a lack of love, and loneliness even at the peak of glory when trying to escape oneself. So why do people feel increasingly lonely, even in today's hyper-connected world? And can we truly embrace loneliness? The nature of loneliness, lack, and desire. Why are people increasingly lonely? It might be because we always think we're sorely lacking something. The more we lack, the more we desire. Lacking affection, we want to be loved. Lacking material things, we want money, power, fame. This is a point worth pondering deeply, my friends. We often feel lonely when we feel we're missing something. Missing a life partner, missing recognition, missing wealth, missing a purpose in life. And when we feel that lack, our natural human instinct is to try and fill that void. We rush outward, seeking new relationships, striving for higher achievements, buying more and experiencing more. The philosopher Schopenhauer once said that human life is a pendulum swinging between suffering and boredom. When our desires are unfulfilled, we suffer. When they are fulfilled, we feel bored, and then a new desire arises. This cycle continues, and the price for these endless desires, as the Buendía family experienced, is often a persistent loneliness until death. Look at José Arcadio Buendía again. His desire to explore, his desire to learn the novelties of the gypsies to the point of obsession and madness. Or Colonel Aureliano, his craving for respect, his ambition to fill his ego with power and military glory, only to realize in the end that it was all vanity. Loneliness itself isn't frightening. But if we live a life led by desire, allowing our inner feelings of lack to dictate our actions, then when loneliness arrives, it will become an all-consuming shadow, destroying our lives. Perhaps the first step in dealing with loneliness is to identify and manage our own desires. There's a beautiful Buddhist saying, "The root of suffering is attachment or craving." When we want less, perhaps we will suffer less and feel less lonely because of unfulfilled expectations. Running from loneliness only makes us lonelier. In modern society, we have countless ways to escape the feeling of being alone. Smartphones, social media, dating apps, endless parties, constant travel, a work life that keeps us busy from dawn till dusk. We try to fill every spare moment, every quiet pause in our souls with external stimuli. But do these things truly help us feel less lonely? Many psychological studies have shown that excessive use of social media can even increase feelings of loneliness and depression. We see the glamorous images, the perfect lives of others, even if it's just a facade, and then we compare them to our own reality, feeling more inadequate, more lacking. Just like Colonel Aureliano, the more he tried to escape loneliness through wars and love affairs, the emptier he felt. Because, as the psychologist Carl Jung said, he who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. True loneliness isn't about external circumstances. It's about our internal state. Running away is only a temporary fix, like taking a painkiller without treating the root cause of the illness. There's a wonderful quote I once read: "You cannot find peace by avoiding life." And loneliness, as we've discussed, is a part of life. So instead of running, we need to learn to face it, embracing loneliness, turning solitude into a space for growth. So how can we embrace loneliness? It sounds paradoxical, but here, embrace doesn't mean feeling joyful when you're lonely, but rather learning to find value and peace in moments of being alone. What we might call solitude, a peaceful state of being alone, rather than loneliness, a negative feeling of isolation. Colonel Aureliano Buendía, after so many years of war and flight, finally found peace sitting alone in his workshop, meticulously crafting his little goldfish. That repetitive action, in absolute stillness, helped him reconnect with himself, find a simple joy and a profound focus. That's a prime example of embracing solitude. So what can we do to turn moments of loneliness into meaningful solitude? Firstly, accept and don't judge. The first step is to accept that feeling lonely is normal. Don't blame yourself or feel like there's something wrong with you when you feel it. See it as a signal that you need some time for yourself. Secondly, create space for stillness. Instead of immediately trying to fill the void with your phone or TV, try sitting still for a bit. Breathe deeply. Observe your thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them. Meditation is a wonderful tool for this. Thirdly, reconnect with yourself. Solitude is an excellent opportunity to ask yourself important questions. What do I truly want? What makes me happy? Am I on the right path? Journaling is also a great way to explore your inner world. Fourthly, pursue personal passions. Use your alone time to do things you genuinely love. Read a good book, like 100 Years of Solitude, perhaps. Learn a new skill. Paint, play a musical instrument, garden, cook. When you immerse yourself in an activity you're passionate about, time seems to stop, and the feeling of loneliness often fades. Fifthly, spend time in nature. Take a walk in a park, go hiking, or simply sit and observe a tree or a flower. Nature has a wonderful healing power, helping us feel connected to something larger than ourselves. Sixthly, practice self-care. Treat your alone time as an opportunity to care for your physical and mental health. Exercise, eat healthily, and get enough sleep. When you feel good from the inside out, you'll have a stronger foundation to face any emotion. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Love your questions, live the questions now." Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without noticing it, live your way into the answer. Solitude is the space where we can live those questions. When you learn to step back from the relentless pursuit of external things, to enjoy being alone purposefully, to stop resisting loneliness, you'll be able to quiet your heart and find your own rhythm. And that's when your heart will be filled with true peace and serenity. A reader once commented on 100 Years of Solitude. "This book taught me that loneliness isn't a curse, but can be a gift if you know how to open it." That's precisely the spirit BookSmart Insights wants to share with you today. Life is never independent of loneliness. We are born, we grow up, we love, we succeed or fail. But in the end, loneliness always exists in a corner of life like a shadow. This is a classic passage from 100 Years of Solitude that I think beautifully encapsulates much of what we've discussed. Our own journey, from being a sheltered child to realizing our own differences, comparing ourselves to friends, that's our first taste of loneliness. Then, as adults, building relationships, we discover that what we truly need, others may not be able to give. What others want, we may not be able to provide. That's the loneliness of misunderstanding, of incompatibility. We crave love, but the more we want it, the easier it is to fall into a vortex of emptiness. The material world constantly beckons, and we chase after what is deemed prosperous: status, fame, wealth. But upon attaining them, we often feel a void. Perhaps, as Colonel Aureliano Buendía realized at the end of his life, fate throws us into this world, creating connections, not for us to entrust our souls to anyone else, but so that you can take responsibility for your own life. For you to understand that deliberately closing your eyes won't make loneliness go away. It's always there, like death. It comes to everyone and will gently accompany us to the end of our days. And when a person has a rich and fulfilled inner life, they will naturally not need to seek external things to fill the void of loneliness. They don't fear it because they know that they are already whole. That wholeness doesn't come from how many people are around them, but from a deep connection with themselves, with the values they pursue, with the simple joys they create for themselves. 100 Years of Solitude isn't just a story about an individual's loneliness. It's also an epic about the history of a family, a slice of Latin American society, and on a grander scale, an allegory for the destiny of all humankind. Reading it, we see the repetition of history, the cycles of fate, and humanity's helplessness before unseen forces. But amidst all of that, there's still a glimmer of hope for self-awareness and the ability to find peace from within. Many people, after finishing this book, share that they feel a profound sadness, but also a strange sense of liberation, as if they've glimpsed a great truth about life. My dear friends at BookSmart Insights, we've just journeyed through quite a bit together, exploring the deep meanings of 100 Years of Solitude and how it can help us build a stronger inner self when facing loneliness. The message I truly hope to convey to you today is this: don't run from loneliness. Like death, loneliness will always be there, waiting for you. Don't be afraid of loneliness, because you are already enough. You are already whole from within. Learn to turn moments of solitude into opportunities to listen to yourself, to nurture your soul, to do the things you truly love. When you find peace and joy from within, loneliness will no longer be a terrifying monster, but can become a companion, a quiet space for you to recharge and continue life's journey. 100 Years of Solitude is a monumental work and can be quite challenging for many readers due to its complex structure and magical elements. But I believe the value it offers is well worth the effort. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to give it a try. And if you have read it, perhaps after this video, you'll have a new perspective to reflect upon. What are your thoughts on today's discussion? Have you experienced moments of loneliness like these? And what books have helped you overcome or understand these emotions better? Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your stories. We can learn and share together. If you found this video helpful and valuable, please don't hesitate to give it a like and share it with friends who you think might also benefit from hearing this message. And most importantly, please hit the subscribe button for BookSmart Insights and the notification bell so we can continue to explore knowledge from great books together. Every bit of your support is a huge motivation for me to create more quality content. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I wish you all find peace and strength from your own inner selves. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.